Please welcome Jada Pinkett Smith with Ellen Pao.
What is happening this evening, you beautiful women? What is going on? I have to tell you, this is just an honor to sit here with Miss Ellen Pao. This woman right here is gangster, okay?
No one has ever called me that.
No, you are, let me tell you something. You are the definition of gangster to me because of what you've done. This woman, she took on the tech world in a big way with a gender discrimination suit. Can you talk a little bit about that?
So in 2012, I had worked at one of the big venture capital firms for 7.5 years, or 7 years, and I sued them for gender discrimination and retaliation. It was a pretty big suit because nobody had ever sued one of these firms before, and nobody had ever called out the behavior. And and they ended up firing me. I ended up going on, taking it all the way to trial, and I lost. But in that process, I learned a lot. I think it taught other people a lot about what's going on behind closed doors and what's acceptable and what's not acceptable.
Yeah, and And I just want to thank you because when we have the courage to make moves like that, you're helping us all. You know what I'm saying? You're advancing and creating more opportunities for us all. So I want to personally say thank you because I don't think everybody really understands what it takes, like the consequence, because I've been in the hot seat, okay? I know it can be lonely. So let's talk about that for 1 second. When you were going through this process, was there ever a point where you were like, maybe next time I won't say anything? Did you ever feel like, did it ever get to a place of pressure where it felt like it was just too much?
I felt like all of the kind of retaliation and the cold shoulders and the negative stuff that they put out about me being a poor performer, about me being unlikable, and all of that sharp elbows, it kind of fortified me.
Got it.
Wow, I can't believe this is happening, and I need to push back against it. They think this is okay, and I really need to not back down because who's going to do that then?
Right. What kind of support did you have during that time?
It was mixed. So, at work, there was no support. It was really hard.
Right.
But I had my family supporting me. I had my good friend Joy, and she's gonna be mad that I mentioned her name because she's very private, so I'm just gonna mention her by first name, but she was my rock.
Got it.
When, everything I would file, I went to law school with her, she would read.
Right.
And every time I had some kind of, should I mention this, should I not? She was like my touchstone. You get very emotional and it's hard because you're in the middle of it, but we had this thing, no collateral damage. So,
right.
We're not gonna talk about people's kids, we're not gonna talk about things that, we're talking about these issues at hand, and we're not going to do the thing that they did, which was bring everybody else into it.
Right.
And she was very helpful in I'm like, is this collateral damage or not? Is this,
Right.
Help me? And she was like my rock pushing me through. And, we'd have conversations at 10 o'clock at night when her kid was sleeping and my kid was sleeping.
Yeah.
And, she was just there for me. And I knew any point in time I could call her and she would just walk me through everything.
So it was your sister girl that was by your
Yeah.
side, right?
I don't think anybody's called her a sister girl.
That's what she is.
That is
sister
my,
girl.
She is my sister girl.
That's right. So since we're here, and part of the conversation today is about how we as women can support each other, right? I want to know if you can just educate me for 1 second, just in regards to what it is like and what kind of biases that you as a Asian American woman, what you face, because I'm hoping that as we go, there's going to be more conversation that our Asian sisters are going to be included more in these conversations that we're having in regards to the movements that are going on, right? So I do want to take a minute for you to educate us all, because I do think it's a lot of myths, okay, that need to get busted here. The fact that, you know, a lot of other minority groups think that, you know, Asians are the cherished minorities, right? That you're the favored minorities, right? And so you're here with us. I just want to hear from your perspective. What is your experience?
Well, I think, and I proved it wrong, like there is this idea that of Asians of being very subservient. They're not going to speak up and complain, which obviously I didn't really follow. That was a wake-up call for them. But there is this kind of idea of this monolithic, like subservient and obedient and hardworking and smart and, you know, willing to do all the grunt work and not complain, that people fall into. And then sometimes you have to live the stereotype in order to, you know, fit in, because people don't want to see somebody who is not fitting that stereotype, because that's not who they hired or who they expect. And that can be really hard. And that, I think, is what causes people to hit into what they call the bamboo ceiling, where it may be easier to get in the door, but I see you as a subservient junior person, and when it comes time to, you know, promote people, I don't see you as that leader. I see you as a person who's like cleaning up and doing the administrative work.
Now, see, I've never even heard that, the bamboo ceiling. Wow, okay. So, just to be clear, it's really kind of that subservient stereotype.
Or the dragon lady. So there's the subservient type, like the lotus blossom, and then there's the dragon lady who's the, you know, bitch on wheels and, you know, not somebody that you want to work with.
Wow, okay.
Yeah.
That's deep. That's deep, but I got some clarity. Because, you know, let me ask you, do you think that it's important as women that I think it's important that we have these kind of conversations, because you just schooled me right now, right? Just in regards to, I feel as though we as women need to understand the different backgrounds, you know, and considering the different problems that we might, or obstacles that we might come up against because of cultural differences or even economic differences. Do you think that's important for women to really learn how to support each other? You know, whether it's in the movement, whether it's in the workplace, do you think that that particular aspect is important?
I wish people had told me. Like, it took me until I was in my late 30s to figure out, oh, there is this systemic issue and it's blocking all of us. And, you know, the world is not this meritocracy. Like, I had seen problems, but I always thought it was me.
Right.
But when you share all of these stories, and I've had so many wonderful people come up to me and tell me, like, wow, I didn't realize, like, I had these same things that happened to me and I thought it was me, and now I know, and I can either find another job or learn tactics to deal with it. But until you know what you're up against, it's really hard to navigate.
Right. And you said while you were going through this discrimination suit, you did not have a lot of support did you have any support from any of the women that were in?
There was one woman who, like, they sent out an internal email talking about litigation to let everybody know, because I think it was about to leak in the press, and they made me sound totally crazy. It was like, she's suing and she had said these things, and they take it out of context and they put it in, and they're like, so hold on to every email that's related to this. And she took me to her office and she showed it to me, and she was just like, you know, they're really coming after you. So she gave me a heads up. But then, like, she never talked to me again until after the lawsuit. So, you know, people were really scared. It's like, I understand it.
Yep.
It didn't make it less painful at the time. Like, you know, you go into your office, these are people that you've worked with for 7 years, and you sit down and the person gets up and moves, right? And I'm like, oh my God, how am I supposed to have this meeting if you're leaving? And then you can't get any meetings set up, and people won't invite you to their meetings. The conversations die when you come into the hallway. You know,
I know about that.
Yeah. and it's painful.
It is.
But I can see this is the culture where, I was not accepted. They called me a cancer. Right. So, you're not going to talk to the cancer, because then you're going to be perceived as a problem, right? I was a problem that they were trying to get rid of. So nobody wanted to associate with me.
Yeah. I understand that. I had a bit of that as well, in regards to the Oscar boycott. And, I had like a red scarlet letter on my forehead for a while, and it's extremely painful, specifically when you feel as though it's like it's not just your fight, it's like you're standing up for everybody, so it can be really tough. It can be really tough. And I'm trying to figure out too, it's really deep, because I'm trying to figure out if when I think about what we need as women to get along, right, and to flow each other power, right, I always come up against comparative superiority, right, which is one of the problems or one of the systems of racism, why I think racism has been put in place anyway, right? I think everybody's always looking for a way or reason to be better than someone else. And I haven't figured if it is a problem of patriarchy or if it's just human nature, right? But I'm trying to figure out how we as women, I know that in my journey, I've had to really check the need for comparative superiority. So that queen bee complex that I think that can be part of what separates women. Right? Those inner dialogues that we need to have. In the tech world and in life in general, have you come across that where you'll find other women that are in your industry that feel as though they cannot associate with someone that they feel is junior to them, or that they feel as though even might not have the same education or economic status?
I think in my experience, it's been more like the company culture is that women are at the bottom. And then it's not really like, I don't know if it's queen bee or more, I want to distinguish myself from that group so you don't look down on me.
Distinguish yourself from
that group of women that I actually belong to.
Right.
By saying negative things or by, and I can't tell if it, but it's like I want to distinguish myself, or I know that's a culture to talk badly about this person or that person, and they happen to all be women, and I'm just trying to fit in because I don't want people talking about me like that.
Right. Yeah, because I'm really trying to figure out, in this era where we're asking men to step up in a certain manner in regards to seeing women as equal and treating and paying us appropriately, I often have to think about how we as women treat each other, right? And it's super important, in trying to figure out how to bridge all these gaps that I see within the world of women, which is one of the reasons why I wanted to talk to you, because I was like, you know what? It takes a gangster gal to to go up against what you did for gender equality. You know what I'm saying? So, wanting to have this conversation with you just in regards to how do you feel as though we as women can do more for each other in the workplace, or we as women can be more supportive when someone like yourself is taking the stand that you're taking? Because we can't expect everybody to stand there with us. I do not expect that, because
totally
there's
agree.
a lot of fear, and I get it, and there's consequences. But because you've been through that experience, and so have I, because a nice little email would be nice, you know what I mean? Just to flow some love towards the person that is actually taking heat, not only for your progress, but for their progress as well, right? So what would you say, since you've been through that experience, what would have been nice? What would have been some of the nice or, a flow of power that some of your sister friends could have flowed to you during that particular time?
There were so many strangers who reached out to me.
Isn't that the truth?
Yeah, so this woman, Geisha Haas, I feel so close to her. I have only met her maybe 2 or 3 times, but she reached out to me when nobody was talking to me. Like, I couldn't bother my poor friend Joy anymore. I'm just like, she has a job, she has kids, but she reached out, she sent me this note, and she's just like, she had gone through some stuff, and then she talked about that. And then she said, often women hold on to like the mean things that people say and let the nice things slide off like Teflon. And instead, you need to hold on to the good things and let the bad things slide off. And that was so powerful to me because people were saying terrible things.
Right.
It was, it was all over the, Reddit. It was all over, and if you read the comments of any of these articles, some reporters had published my daughter's name. So they, I begged them not to, and they put her name in, and it was a woman reporter, was part of that team too. And I was like, oh.
Right.
And so there's just she just sent an email, and it was just so super meaningful to me at that time. There were people who stopped me in the street, and they were just like, I had this terrible experience, and your speaking up was meaningful to me.
Yes.
And they will never speak up, right? And I don't blame them. They will never speak up, but it was important for them to acknowledge the work that goes into doing this type of, making this kind of a stand.
Real talk.
Yeah, and these women were awesome.
Yeah.
And I have to say, there were a lot more Black and brown women.
Right.
I think, your experience, they have experienced similar things, and they could see it right away.
Right.
The jury had a bunch of Asian women who all voted against me, and this one Black woman who, at the end, she spoke up, and she was just like, I've seen this, this is not fair, and I just want to tell you why I think so, and why I voted in favor of her. But, and she did the work to stand up and to speak out and to make a statement. And I was so appreciative because that was a bad day.
Right. Wow.
Yeah.
Why do you think your Asian sister friends voted against you? Because you know what? I feel like sometimes that happens in family.
Yeah.
Right? It's a trip how... your sister friends in your family will turn against you, right? I just find it to be an interesting situation. From your perspective, why do you think that might be the case?
I think there is in the Asian culture this belief in meritocracy, that if you work hard, you will be rewarded for it, and that the system is actually beneficial because at the early levels, it does look better for Asians. You do get the jobs, and you do, get into schools, and you do have what appears to be a good experience, and if you're, young and you haven't hit that bamboo ceiling yet, it does seem like that's the way the world works.
Right.
And I think, if you believe in that, and then you have, a firm saying terrible things about how bad I was as a worker and how nobody liked me, that fits into the mold of, oh, it is a meritocracy, she is the problem, let's just,
get her out of here.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I know about that too. But you know what? I do want to give a shout out to those, street soldiers. I always call them street soldiers. The people that come up to you on the street and they give you a pound, they give you a hug, they give you some love, and they just go, thank you. You know what I mean? And they flow you that love power, that little bit of love power to keep you going. So I definitely want to say big up and much love to them because, they keep you going.
They really do.
Yeah. What kind of magic do we think happens when we actually get it right. Now, can you think of a time when there was a woman who really went to bat for you?
Oh, I think of like what I'm working on now, Project Include. It was, I had like ran away after working at Reddit. So I worked at Reddit as CEO, as an employee and then as CEO for a while. We got rid of revenge porn and unauthorized nude photos, and then we were starting to get rid of some of the really bad subreddits where people were actually harassing users, and then I got fired.
Got it.
And during that time, it was like also I was in trial, and it was just like this.
Oh, you were still going through a trial when you were going through the Reddit situation?
Yeah, so I would go to trial, I'd go to Reddit, I'd go home, I didn't sleep very much, and I was just working.
Right.
And there was just like a lot of abuse heaped on me on Reddit, and just in general. So after all that, I went to Hawaii. I escaped to Hawaii. I have a friend out there, another sister girl.
Sister girl, yeah.
And she just hosted me and my family, and we just relaxed. And then, I took some time off. And then I came back, and I started to talk to people about mostly women. Like, what do we need to do in tech? Like,
right.
This problem is so pervasive, and we're not seeing any change. And like the current path for a company to feel like they're doing the right diversity and inclusion measures is to have a 45-minute training session on unconscious bias, which isn't doing anything.
Right.
And then they even go out and they do PR about it, and they show the picture of the white man who gave the training, and they feel all good about it. And we're like, this is not going to work. Like, what do we need to do? And
right.
at the end, 8 of us got together. We put together a website with I think 87 recommendations, and we're just like, these are the things you need to do, and these are the reasons. We had, links to all of the, all the data and all the research and all of the, other helpful sites that were out there with all of this information, and we're like, we're just going to put it out there so that people can't say they don't know where to go. Like, here's a website, and it ended up becoming this whole nonprofit, but it was such a good experience. So I'm going to shout out to Erica, Bethany, Laura, Wyvon, Tracy, Susan, and Frida, because we were able to do this in a positive way.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So have you seen change since you took that stand and since Good.
It's been good. Like, in the beginning, it was really kind of like, ooh, people don't really understand diversity and inclusion. But then I would run into people and be like, I read your whole website. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it's like 100 pages. Read the whole website, really excited about what you're doing, and and it's really helping me in my company. And 2 years later, I'm working with CEOs now of startups, and and they get it. They're like, I know I need to change my company, and I know I need to hire more Black and brown people, and I want to hire more women, and I know I need to do that now, because if I wait until it's 2040 and there are more people of color than white people, I'm totally screwed. So they're getting it. Like, they're getting that there's a real reason to do it. They, most of them also get that there's a fairness reason, but they feel a business imperative now. Like, it's actually real for them, and they're willing to, take risks, and they're willing to do things that might not work. It's not a check the box anymore.
Right. That's awesome. I think, did our timer go out? Is that a 0? Does that mean it's time for Q&A? I was trying to figure out how to read this little timer that they have down here, and I don't see any numbers on it. It's just zeros.
Time for Q&A.
Oh, there it says time for Q&A. All right. Let's have a Q&A. Do we have microphones out there for people? Oh, there's a mic right there. While somebody is about to go to that microphone, I'm about to ask you something kind of ignorant, okay?
I find that hard to believe.
I think because I was sitting with my friend today, and I was watching some of your videos. And I can't remember what institution it was, but it was so great. It was a group of Asian students, I believe, and they were considering themselves people of color. Because when I talk about people of color, I'm talking about everybody. I'm talking about everybody, Native Americans, Latins, Blacks, everybody, Asians. So my friend was like, oh my goodness, they're calling themselves people of color. And I was like, well, yeah, they consider themselves, if you're not white, then you're a person of color. But here's the question, what color?
I think, at least I think of myself as yellow.
Okay,
right?
got it.
The traditional stereotype, but also, it's a distinguishing color.
Got it.
But I think I think it should be bonding, I hope, for other people. Like, I feel very much connected with, Black people and with Latinx people because we've all had this shared experience of unfairness.
Yes.
And while, Laura always says, like, it's not the oppression Olympics. We don't have to compare how badly we've experienced.
Exactly. That's real talk.
Yeah. But I do think there is this, there is a lot where, some people lump Asians together with whites, and that drives me bonkers. Because
Right.
it's, we have different experiences, and I think it drives a wedge between Asians and Black people and Latinx people, and we should all be working together. Like, change
Right.
isn't going to come if we're working separately.
Right.
And I think that's what
That's
the next year
including
should be about.
our white sisters too. Because we all need each other, and that's really the bottom line. And it's really just creating this nation of womanhood. Real talk. Hey, you ready to ask a question?
I'm a little short, but I'm
That's
gonna try.
okay.
She knows me. Stephanie Lampkin, founder and CEO of Blendor.
Hey!
So one thing Ellen hasn't mentioned is she's been in the investor seat, K-Port Capital. So my question is, actually, let me step back. I've realized in being in the D&I space, more than anything, the privilege that I do possess as being cisgender, as coming from a family with a positive socioeconomic background. And so it's changed the way that I think about my own bias against people who aren't as privileged. How do you personally combat your own bias and recognize your own privilege as you're evaluating who you invest in, who you mentor, and who you take the time to give access to your resources?
Ooh, so I am now investing on my own. So I'm full-time at Project Include, and so I angel invest. It is hard. It's I try to think about my portfolio, and if anything, I try to invest so that it's more diversity oriented, so that there is more, and I'm actually going to share my stats at some point, hopefully in the next few weeks, on like the percentage, because I think more than half are women and more than half are people of color. So and I think about that. Like, I look at my portfolio and I've marked, the different things, and periodically I'll look and see, like, who am I investing in? Am I overlooking people? I will work with funders that I think are investing in diverse portfolios. So I'm actually an investor in Arlen Hamilton's Backstage Capital, who's awesome. And I think another investor who's done great at investing in people from underrepresented backgrounds is Charles Hudson of Precursor Ventures. So I'm also an investor there. And then I look at their pipeline. I'm not an active person in terms of trying to find entrepreneurs. I'm actually a little bit lazy because I have this other full-time job, and then I'm a mom, so I'm not the most disciplined, but I try to work with funds that are good at that. And it is not perfect, and I know I can do better, but I'm really trying, and I'm looking at my stats periodically, and then I'm also trying to push other firms to do the same. But it's so hard, but you really just have to look at the numbers and really push where you can.
I really like you.
So nice.
Hey.
Hey, thank you. First of all, Jada, I just want to say respect.
Thank you.
And because I'm a teacher, I just want to tell you there are no ignorant questions.
Oh, thank you.
And for Ellen, I have a question specifically about project inclusion in terms of women who are older. So for example, I was a stay-at-home mom. The reason I'm here right now is because my daughter earned her Girl Scout Gold Award, and we were invited to participate in Makers because she's an up-and-coming.
Oh, and she has her Futures Female shirt on.
That's right. So I've got two of them. They're both Girl Scout Gold Award recipients. And I was really proud to be a stay-at-home mom with them. And 18 years I raised them. But then, got a divorce, went back to school, got my master's degree, and I'm gonna be 50 in July. And, and I know I gotta own it, but I'm trying to build a career at 49. So any suggestions for, project inclusion, white, yeah, gender cis woman and all that, but I need to earn a living.
Yeah.
So how can I connect, or any suggestions?
There is a startup that is looking at reintroducing mostly moms to the workforce. I can't remember off the top of my head what it's called. I know Mother Coders, that's right. So I would check out their website and connect with them. I think you can look at websites and just see, and this is, people from all groups do this, to see like what pictures do they have, what do the people look like on their teams. And, some startups are better than others at hiring across all age groups, and you can really try to find the companies which are more open to people who are older. But there is definitely an age bias, and it is real, and what you're feeling is not tied to you specifically. So I hope you can, realize that and just try to find a place where they are less biased than the places that you might want to avoid. I'm sorry, I wish I had a good answer, but it's not. It's just hard out there. Yeah.
Yes, there you go. Do we have any other questions? No one? Oh, there we go. Come on, mama. Come on down. Oh, we got two.
Nice,
Okay.
right? Letting each other go.
Okay. So one of the things I think that I've always struggled with intersectionality is how do I, as a female but still from a place of privilege, kind of get people talking? Like, I think particularly working in the tech sector, there are large groups of people of color already, and they seem to kind of have their own community. And I don't know how to ask them to open up and be vulnerable with us, or get into the conversation to feel like we can help raise them up. I think that I feel like an outsider to them, and I don't know how to not feel intrusive.
There's an awesome book for you. Ijeoma Oluo's, and I hope I didn't say her name incorrectly, So You Want to Talk About Race. And she really breaks down all of these different behaviors and all of the different things that might help you understand without trying to ask people to be vulnerable to you. She's taken her vulnerability and put it all on the page. And I think that's an amazing book to start with. And that will give you some ideas on, what else you can do. It's amazing.
I'm gonna check that out.
Thank you.
You want to talk about race? That's good.
Hi, my name is Susan. I'm with Sleep Number. My crew's right there. I love what I'm seeing on stage right now, and even just in your sharing your story and talking about women of all races coming together. And that's not something that we see a lot, and especially in our companies, like people kind of get in their clusters. What are your kind of tips for encouraging women of all shades to come together? And how have you kind of brought that to life in your experience?
I think sometimes it's just inviting people. Like a lot of it starts one-on-one. Like Erica Joy Baker, I saw her on Twitter and we kind of followed each other and we supported each other on Twitter. And then one day I just DM'd her. I'm like, I would love to meet you. And she's like, let's get a drink at the Ferry Building. And I was like, I'm there. Or maybe she reached out to me. I can't remember. But it was like, it's just kind of organically one at a time. And then if you start talking about, I really wish we could bring our groups together, then you have somebody to work with. And it's not this cold start. And I think it really does come from like one-on-one, people getting to know each other better and trusting each other.
That's really good, like how to create a bridge.
Yeah.
Just starting with a one-on-one relationship.
Good evening.
Thank you. She's my sister girl now.
That's right. That's right.
Good evening. My name is Regina Wilson. I just want to. I definitely want to give a shout out to Jada. Love you, girl.
Thank you.
I come from the job that I have is built on exclusion and it's nationwide. My job is male dominated, and it is a job that is systematically created to keep out people of color and women. And with that in mind, I try and get help from every and anybody to be able to change because it's a tradition and a culture of a department, which is the fire department.
Wow.
And from that, we have such a struggle with it. And then today I gave some statistics that women are only 4% nationwide, women are represented. So how do we continue, because we continue to struggle and battle to break free and break those traditions and customs, but you're dealing with a boys club and a frat mentality. How do we break through that systematic, oppressed type of departments across the country that doesn't give us a fair opportunity? How do you think we can be able to break through to these people that's generationally taught to be that way?
Wow, I wish I had an easy answer. I mean, thank you for doing the work that you're doing and for sticking it out. Are there people that you know who are interested in doing the same thing?
It is, but we're outnumbered. Like, my job is 70% white. So it's hard to push back. And for, like you talked about women, you have the women that try to get along. So there's women, it's 87 of us, but it's really probably only a good 30 of us that stick together. So it's hard to be able to gather those groups together. So there are people, like, you have to sue in order to make significant changes. So how do we chip away at it? You know, we don't want to sue.
Yeah.
But
No,
we have
you
to.
don't.
Yeah, they got $100 million spanking, but how do you change those mindsets to help people to see that it's just a job? Like, it's not, the face of bravery is a woman too,
Yeah. It's hard. I guess sometimes it's by telling stories, and I do think that if you don't want to sue, the press can be a good outlet. People are afraid, they aspire to be good people, and they aspire to be fair, and they don't aspire to be sexist, or racist. It just happens that way. And if you can shed some light in a public light and have other people say, hey, this actually isn't right. And that's, I lost my litigation, but but when the light shone on the things that were happening, people were just like, this is not acceptable. And if you can figure out a way to, tell your story or have other women tell their stories with you, often it takes like 3 or 4 people, and to find a trusted reporter or to do it on your own, it can be very powerful. But I would try to talk to somebody who is in public relations before you did that, to really come up with a strategy and come up with a plan, and frankly, like, to think about, well, can I be fired? And, what would I do? Do I have enough money saved? And, can I find another job? And that sometimes is, unfortunately, something that holds a lot of people back from sharing their stories and experiences.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you. I wish we had time. I know. It's been 0-0 for the longest, and they said that was the last question.
Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry. Can we take one more? We can take one. Okay, let's take one more. We'll take one more.
It'll be a good one, I promise.
Okay.
My name is Corey. I'm here representing the trans community.
Hey.
I'm interested in how you include trans women and men with what you do.
So Project Include, part of what we do is we work with companies to survey their employees. So we survey every single one of their employees to figure out what their population of all different categories, including transgender, people, employees, is. And we really think that there's, a lot of the work on kind of bringing light to what's going on in tech has been focused on binary gender. And we really want to try to push things beyond that, where, it's not public yet, but we've done a survey where, it shows that a significant percentage of people can view themselves as non-binary, and this whole push to be 50-50, it doesn't make sense to me. Like, you're pushing to be 50-50 in a world that is not 50-50. And I just talked to the head of GLAAD, who was like, 40% of people in, whatever generation, Gen Z, or, in the younger population thinks of themselves as non-binary or non-conforming. And I think that's a message that gets lost in a lot of the changes that people are trying to make. And so part of what we plan to do is we're releasing a report, and now I'm saying it out loud in public, so I really have to do it, but to show, like, there is a segment of people who are non-binary, and we need to start thinking about how we treat them in our businesses and in our companies. And while you're not going to go out and try to find out who they are, if you can make an all-gender bathroom, or there are things that you can do to make it more comfortable without forcing people to state their genders and gender identities, or to share their sexual orientation, which people aren't comfortable doing. So, like, what are things that you can do, and to try to push companies to think beyond binary gender?
Awesome, thank you.
Thank you. Well, everyone, we had a good time with you tonight. Thank you for coming to hang out with us. We really appreciate it. Ellen, Miss Gangster, do you have anything to say before we leave?
I felt like completely unprepared for this, and I was just like, I trust Jada. Her show is so awesome. So watch her show on Red Table on Facebook. It is awesome. And then you have been a remarkable audience. So this has been the most fun that I've had in a long time. So thank you.
Thanks, guys.